Brilliant. Okay, good afternoon.
Hiya, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So, Amanda, really great to be able to speak to you today, particularly in terms of from myself, in terms of representing kind of all things education in Derby North.
Yeah.
So, what I thought we could do today was just use this as an opportunity to kind of understand you a little bit more. It would be great to be able to understand your kind of education, schooling, what life was like in school all those years ago, and then also just an opportunity for educationalists to be able to understand what your thinking is if you were to be voted back in, and also in terms of some of the work that you've done so far and the impact that you've had, not just on schools but the wider education sector, whether that be alternative provisions, colleges, universities. Those kind of things. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like a plan. Okay.
I think it would just be really nice for for listeners out there just to kind of to know a little bit about you in terms of your schooling, how you found school, how you found education. What was kind of your educational experience like?
Oh gosh, and it was such a shock going from a school where there were 12 in a year to just this massive school. It was just like, oh my goodness. And I remember a story which was utterly ridiculous, but I was going along and we had tights. I was wearing tights for the first time, and I had these tights and the colour was ecru, it's like a cream colour. And I was walking along anyway, and I got my bag and everything, and I unfortunately knocked a girl who was like 2 or 3 years older than me, a big girl, and I tore her tights. Well, I'd never really come across anything like this. And she got hold of me and she said, "You've just torn my tights." I'm going, "I didn't mean to." But if you don't bring me a spare pair of tights tomorrow, you're for it. And I remember vividly, and I carried this packet of tights in my bag for like 4 years because I was just worried that this girl, who obviously just got off, but it was an absolute culture shock going from say really small to a large school.
Did you enjoy school?
No, it wasn't something that I enjoyed at all particularly. And again, we can come into it if you're interested a bit later. But just something really important just to say now is I don't think anybody should have to pay for schooling, by the way. And as a commitment, one of the things that I did was I've been a school governor for 20 years at a local state school, and I'm a trustee at a local academy as well. So it wasn't about, it was just the way things were for me, and you asked me personally. So I went to the school. I was so shy, and I know it's really hard to imagine, but I would just sit in fear of anybody asking me a question. And like you sit, the class would be like 30, 35, and I'd just sit there thinking, please don't come to me, please don't come to me, please. And I think my shyness dominated my enjoyment of school because I was just quite petrified really. But I did have a couple of interests. I love maths, always loved maths, and I adore history. So I really enjoyed those. And I think had what was going on at home not happened, maybe my education standard might have been slightly different. But I ultimately went on to get, I think it was 5 GCSEs, took my maths early, and then did some other GCSEs. Got an A for history, so loved my history.
Well
thank you very much. In fact, 1733, case fly shuttle it. But there's lots of things I remember from that because I absolutely loved it. And then everything pretty much deteriorated from then onwards. And I did A levels sort of, but I was probably drunk off, which it sounds like a terrible thing to say. I'm not advocating it, by the way, but I just did not enjoy that experience. I don't remember an awful lot about it, but I don't think I was particularly, I would say, disruptive at home, but also I would say probably just too chaotic. And I think I am quite clever, but I just never really, and I didn't get any A-level results at all.
I think there's a couple of things that I reckon teachers out there, educationalists out there, and even particularly some young people who are now eligible and able to vote, that can resonate with some of your experiences at school, particularly around that shyness, particularly in terms of some young people going to school is kind of almost their like safe haven for some challenges or some experiences that they may be facing at home and those kind of things. What are your thoughts in terms of, from a political point of view around the pressures and the constraints? I know some educationists out there will be thinking teachers have now become social workers, and that causes a lot of demand and a lot of pressure on resources around there. What's you thinking, your key messages around that?
Well, that's a really interesting, and I'll answer it personally and then maybe just pick me up politically. But I think it's always been incumbent on teachers to have that social aspect. And again, I'm just thinking for myself, I was what they would call as a pupil premium. So I ended up having some money. We used to get like a voucher every term that would help towards food. But I had to go and cash it. I spent it on number 6. I mean, this is just terrible. I'm sorry. Don't ever tell my dad that, because but the idea would be for food basically. And I remember I only just found out recently actually, one of my closest friends was that concerned about how difficult it was for me at home that she went to the school and they actually checked me out just to make sure that it was quite okay for me to stay at home. I only found that out recently. So I do think actually, in a way, there has to be a social part of teaching. And I honestly think, and maybe you and I have said this before, but if you get education right, it can be a sanctuary for people, but also it can be fun, which I never particularly found it as fun, but it can be, and there's so much richness as well, which is why I've loved what you do, why I always try and get into schools as much as I can, because there is such a lot that it can have to offer. I think it's harder nowadays in terms of social media, but I think that element of socialism has always been there.
Was there anybody in school, in terms of teacher, that kind of inspired you, that kind of got you to school every day, that kept you motivated? Is there anyone that you can remember distinctively?
Well, at junior school there was Mrs Johnston, who was absolutely adorable. I genuinely, I remember her, she used to look at you, look you in the eye, and that is really important. And I used to think she really is interested in what I've got to say. So she really had a most amazing effect. I remember Mrs Sullivan at my senior school, who again, I used to be a bit bizarre in my dress. But it was punk, so I was sort of like black and probably wasn't always wearing a school uniform. And I remember she used to call myself and my friend amiable eccentrics, because we always looked a little bit odd. So I remember Mrs Sullivan was lovely. Then I do remember there was a teacher called, I think it was Miss Garbutt, who, history. And so I've always had a great passion for history, always had a great passion for English as well. And I remember she came to the class, and I was in 1C, I think it was just right. Oh no, it would have been 2B by then. Said, right, one of the things, history, there's such a richness to history. Said, what's your name, boy? And this boy said, my name's something Gardner. I remember it, but I won't repeat it. And she said, do you know what your ancestor did? And he looked at her and he said, did they garden? She said, yes! And that's what history's all about. And I thought that was just brilliant. And I remember it now, many, many, many years later, because that's what a good teacher does. They use language, they use imagery, they use situations to bring alive the subject that they're talking about. So yeah, I do remember those good things.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit in terms of where we are in terms of currently.
Yes.
With regards to education and schools. I see a lot of your work on social media.
Yes.
You're out and about. You visit kind of lots of schools.
Yeah.
Just talk us through, some of the things you've been doing with schools during your time as an MP for Derby North currently.
Well, hopefully, one of the things to put it into context really is I did go guiding as a leader for 20 years, as well as being the school governor for 20 years.
And I'll come back to the school governor in a second, which is really helpful.
Yes.
Because I think in particular, and certainly in terms of the wider education sector, governors can sometimes be the unsung heroes. They've got a lot of hours in time, for free. It is a voluntary role, but they've got a lot of responsibility and a lot of accountability. And I'm particularly interested in terms of any governors that are listening out there around how you view governors in their roles. But just talk us, as I say, talk us through some of the experience and some of the work you've been doing with schools and colleges, nurseries, universities at the moment.
Yeah, so tick on all of those because it's really, really important to do that. I think that it's twofold. One, I really like to support the institution, whether it's an academy, whether it's an alternative provider, whether it's a college, whether it's university. It's working collaboratively with all the amazing, and they are amazing, teachers, vice-chancellors, principals. And then, as well as that, it's about trying to engage with young people. And again, whatever age they are, from my point of view, just it could be around getting interest in politics. It doesn't matter which politics, so of course I prefer Conservative, but for me it's about having an interest in politics. But then also, it's around that believing in yourself a bit. Because I think it's helpful to share a story where I wasn't particularly confident, where I didn't believe I could do something, where I achieved my wildest dreams, and hopefully that's a message that maybe, even if just one or two young people take away, hopefully it will be inspiring for them to go on and achieve something that they want to do desperately, but just don't believe that they can.
Okay. And then in terms of from the governor aspect of things, so just to unpick that a little bit more, there's many governors out there at the moment that are giving it up, copious amounts of hours.
Absolutely.
In schools, in multi-academy trusts, they have a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of expectation from government in terms of accountability.
Yeah.
Just talk us through in terms of your kind of work around working in schools as governors, how you see their role, what their importance is in education.
Yes, and we have got some amazing schools in Derby North, and I could go and mention them. I mean, and I'm just thinking about Royal School for the Deaf, how different that could be from, for example, St Giles, from, let's say, Little Over. There's so many different schools. But I think for me, the governor's role, I remember one of my closest friends is a head teacher, fantastic head teacher, inspirational head teacher, I would say. And she said to me, way before I became an MP, I think you'd really enjoy becoming a school governor. I said, well, why do you think? And she said, well, it's a real opportunity to make a difference to young people's lives, and it genuinely is. And it's one of the best things, honestly, I ever did. I particularly wanted to go to a senior school because I think there are different challenges for primary schools and senior schools. I wanted to go to a senior school. It was needs improving. We managed to really get all of that improvement. And the school governors, they're interesting as well because you have a mix. You have some people from business, some parent governors in the case where I was. But again, everybody has one particular focus, which really is about making sure that school is doing as well as it can. And they call it a critical friend, a school governor. And I often use that in lots of things that I do. If you can be a critical friend, in other words, you're friendly, you're supportive, but you know when to give that not even criticism, but really that feedback that will set you forward. So loved it.
Do you have any kind of through university visits or college visits or school visits, any of those kind of, have you got any kind of memorable moments or something that actually really stuck with you and thought, wow, I was just really inspired by that, or in particular a young person that had a conversation with, what stuck with you during those school visits and experiences?
I mean there are actually so many, because you have so many different experiences at the college, where you see fantastic apprenticeships carried out, at the university, where, again, very different, maybe having debates. But I guess if I had one moment, and I don't say this out of being flattering, it was meeting you. Clive from the High. I remember it because...
And that was during lockdown.
It was
during a time that was very tough.
I was going to say, which was very tough. Yeah. It was particularly tough for teachers and all those, for all key workers, but particularly tough for teachers. Very tough for parents as well, actually. Yeah. But I just remember all the great work that you were doing, and we were all sat around having a chat. So that was really, that's something that stuck in my mind. But there are so many amazing young people. I've been to some fantastic schools, Murray Park as an example, and the questions that I get asked are unbelievable. And so across the spectrum, too many to mention, but some great schools, great pupils.
Brilliant. And on that particular point, I really want to home in on something quite specific around children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, or children and young people that may be at risk of permanent exclusion, perhaps because of challenging behaviours or challenging needs. You recently organised a visit for the Minister of Children and Families, who came to St Clair Special School. You mentioned Royal School for the Deaf.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, in terms of from your social media, I've seen some of the work you've done around the deaf community within Derby. I'm, you know, just really interested to understand in terms of, you know, it can sometimes appear in the public domain that for some MPs or for some ministers they're not heavily engaged with some of the most, you know, the most vulnerable young people in our society, and it has been interesting to see that you've decided to get involved in that. Talk us a little bit through that, what you're interested in, what you've got out of, what are some of the things you've got out of those visits and working with some of the young people and adults with disabilities.
Well, I think I think again a really great question. The whole reason why I became an MP was to work in the community. And you genuinely can. It was great to bring the Minister for a visit because it's really important. He just seemed to have a hook and an idea of what's going on, but actually to meet people in the community is really important. So making a difference. You mentioned about special educational needs as well, and one of the things that we're doing, and it's just, I know you came to a meeting that we had recently, is we're trying to really lean into Derby becoming an autistic friendly city. And we're just working on that with a company, and just thinking about if there's some kind of logo or something that we can do that actually enables people to be able to, with autism, to walk into a shop and know that it's an autistic friendly shop. If it's so I just think as a city it's about coming together and really supporting lots of different educational needs. I remember vividly going into engineered learning, which with the great Dan, I know we saw him the other day, and talking to the kids there, and they do lots of stuff with metalwork. So they do welding and they learn how to do all these amazing things. And I spoke to one of the kids there and I said, do you like it here? And he said, yeah, I really do love it here. And I said, what is it that you like best? And he honestly, Clive, he looked me in the eye and he said, if it wasn't for engineered learning, I know I would be in prison. I mean, how amazing is that? I know that I would be in prison. And that is what makes, so, and I could give examples of that about baby people, I could give examples about that for so many places in Derby North and across the city. And that's what you guys do, actually. You know, and a great big thank you to you, because you do make a difference to young people. Inspirational teachers gave people like me an opportunity. So just a great big thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's look in terms of the future.
Yes.
Some kind of big questions.
Oh, okay.
So schools out there, there
yes.
may be head teachers out there, governors out there, young people are eligible to vote. Thinking about Derby North.
Yes.
So if I was to ask the question, what can you do for local schools in your constituency if you were to be voted back in as MP for Derby North? What can you do for schools?
So I think one of the important things is, it's first of all, like I say, just first thing on a simple basis is going into schools and being really supportive, organising debates and showing an interest, because it is really important. The second thing, again on a practical basis, is bringing kids down to London as well, because it's just so fantastic to see this amazing place where legislation is made. And then of course the big thing, the other part of being a politician, is getting through that legislation and really having an impact on the schools and bringing that education, all that legislation in. So there's lots of ways that you can do that. I think there's more that we should be doing. I love the fact that we've got more apprenticeships as an example.
So some of the key challenges that schools would say, educationalists would say, would be around funding, would be around buildings. And then if we look at, say, for example, baby people, at the recent visit with the Minister, they were talking about alternative providers and being able to support some of those young people that, if you like, traditional education or traditional schooling isn't right for them. What do you think you could do to help those people and organisations if you were to be voted back in and be MP for Derby North?
So just stepping back on just a couple of those things. First of all, I don't want to get too political. I know I am a politician, but when you're thinking about the standards of education in 2010 compared to standards now, it's unbelievable the strides that we've made, and that's around all education, also in terms of English and maths. And of course, the other thing that we're doing in education is just around that mental health awareness as well. That's been really important. It's one of the key things when I go into schools. It's become a big challenge because we are prepared to talk about these things. Now, we know that in Derby we've had lots of investment as well. We saw it the other day at St Clair's, the investment. We know there's been investment in lots of new builds as well. And of course, that's the right thing to do. We've invested more and more money. One of the things the challenges that you have is how much money to invest. And of course, a lot of it's around the local authority as well. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the alternative provision, I would say I am a great advocate for making sure that we keep those provisions as alive as possible. If you talk to Baby Jake, Baby People, I'm fairly sure that he would say, I have been really helping towards the provision that he provides. I think Dan would say that I really support the work they do at Engineered Learning. Talk to Paul at Royal School for Day, talk to all of those people. It is about making sure we get support, it's about making sure we work locally together, and it's about making sure that we always have that single most important focus, which of course is the person who's receiving that education.
So one of the things you briefly mentioned was around local authority, and it's really important as part of, if you like, bringing everyone together, that the local authorities still play a really crucial part. At the moment, obviously, through policy, we've got a very different system now in the education. We've got maintained schools, we've got academy schools, we've got free schools. In terms of schools out there, particularly in your constituency, and particularly if they were to vote for you to remain in as MP, what are some of the things that schools? How can schools work with you and engage with you to work with the local authority on any challenges that they may be facing?
Well, I guess it's about what we need to have a think about is where you can get involved as an MP, and on the whole, the place would be really just going into the schools is being supportive as you can. Of course, there are situations where I would need to write on behalf of the school as well. I'm always very, very happy to do that. And clearly, when it comes to academies, it was a big policy that the government had, that they wanted to have the academies, and that's been a really useful way. And I know, obviously, so what I do think is really important is that education is in the hands of those people who really know about education. And my role as an MP is to be supportive and to enable that to happen. It's not necessarily to get involved and be disruptive. And I think there's a fine balance in terms of how we can help and support education without disrupting it, because you guys, you know what you're doing, and I think you should be left to do that.
In terms of ultimately, we're here for as educationalists for the young people in particular, and I just want to revisit some of your own personal experiences regarding school life. There was some aspects of it that you didn't enjoy.
Yes.
There was some pressures at home that you found quite challenging. And often school can be, if you like, the hub or the haven for supporting those children and supporting those families. What kind of messages would you say to young people out there, or what kind of messages would you say to parents or family members out there in terms of support and help, and how you would work with them if they were to write with you, write to you, and what do you think the role is of schools to support those particular families?
Well, I think the really important thing is I think we are talking about issues a lot more.
Okay.
And I think relationships with teachers, with pupils, relationships with teachers and parents, I think all those relationships are a lot stronger because we're a lot more aware now of the way things are going on. There's a lot more safeguarding, as an example. There's a lot more training that's done around awareness. And the big thing for me is to look for alternative behaviour. So if somebody's normally being quite vibrant, quite alive, quite full on, and then they go quite quiet, that could indicate there's problems. And likewise, if somebody's normally quiet and then they become more, then at the same time that might indicate there's problems as well. So I think this is where teachers are really well placed, because they see so many hours a day. When you think about how many hours there are in a day, how much time a teacher has with a pupil, you get to know them, relationships are built, and therefore I think there's lots and lots of things that teachers can do. But I do think we're a lot better. I think, let's not underestimate though, I think two things: how brilliant teachers are, and I really do think teachers do a brilliant job. but also how hard it is being a teacher as well. And I think we have to remember that.
And I think the wider aspect as well, so not just teachers, whether it be support staff, your back office staff, nursery staff, governors, collectively. Do you think in terms of the education system and where we're at the moment, do you think the school teachers would say, and leaders would say, it's becoming more pressurised, it's becoming more demanding, as I kind of alluded to earlier on around the whole aspect around supporting kind of welfare needs, constraints with finances, challenges with young people's behaviour. What are your views in terms of where we're currently at in the educational landscape at the moment?
So this is where it comes back for me around how an individual school functions and how it functions either within the local authority or as the academy or however it operates. And I really do believe that senior leadership team, the SLT, is such an important part. So it's around working collectively. I think if you get good, inspirational people at the top, I think it can cascade down. I know as an example how well you support the people who work in the academy. I know I've worked with some brilliant head teachers, again, who really support their staff. So I think it's about, I honestly think that senior leadership is just so important. And I think you can say there's lots of things that factor in. You can think about where the school is. There's certainly more. I can think about the most amazing school, Furs, as an example. 53 different languages, 53. And all of those kids are all cared for equally by the most amazing, everybody in the school is absolutely incredible. And I could name other schools in the constituency where you have these amazing people. And sometimes, Clive, I think it's really important to remember it's not just about the outcome, it's not just about those exams, it's actually about all of that pastoral care that takes place. It's about those children going home and feeling as though they've been loved. And I remember one of my friend I say worked in the school, and it was a very deprived school. It wasn't in Derby North, because all our schools are very good. But thinking about, and she said sometimes you just take a child out for a while and you really support the child in the few hours they're at school, and then you know that they're going to go back into an environment that's just that isn't as good a place as you are, as you let them go from. I heard the horse neighing. I was just really, really distracted. But anyway, maybe I'm not. It's not a point worth landing.
But I think particularly, and I think Furs school you're referring to, and Paula.
Paula, we love you.
I've had the privilege of working alongside Paula as peer head teacher, and I think head teachers out there, particularly in terms of in your local constituency, will be really reassured to hear some of those things in particular, because schools like Furs are in challenging circumstances. As you say, they've got numerous languages, lots of young people that may be eligible for pupil premium and free school meals, and often feel under immense pressure with results and SATs and Ofsted and all of those kind of things. And I think it's quite refreshing for head teachers out there to hear a local MP particularly share those views and share those thoughts.
Yeah. And education is just so important, and qualifications are important as well, but they're not everything. And I left school, like I said, I think I got 5 GCSEs and then nothing at my A-levels, and then my education stopped completely. So there are always other routes, which is why I'm quite keen on the apprenticeship route as an example. And life sometimes has a way of sort of finding your journey. But I do think if you can make, it's a really important point to me that children are children, that they have a childhood, and school is one of those most amazing places that can afford every single child an opportunity to look back as they get older and think, wow, that I was a child. And it's about catching butterflies, isn't it? As it's about looking around. I watch it. You'll see it with you'll see it with the kids you work with. Just that desire for exploration, for knowledge, for learning, and just nurturing that. It's amazing.
Okay. So let's kind of gradually bring this to a conversation So
right.
I've got a couple of quick fire questions.
Oh my goodness.
Some things will be your personal views and experiences in terms of likes and dislikes, and some things will be hot topics in education. And it's quick fire, so we want the quick response rather than the long political response. So
go for
quick fire.
Go
School experience in terms of history or geography? History. Children's authors, Roald Dahl or J.K. Rowling?
Roald Dahl.
Oh, Roald Dahl. Education, Ofsted or no Ofsted?
Ofsted. You need something.
Okay, you need something. Good political response there.
No, that was genuine. You have to have something that should be supportive.
Academies or local authority maintained?
I think you should be given the choice.
Okay. School dinners or packed lunches?
Dinners.
School dinners. What was your favourite school dinner when you was at school?
Oh, that caramel tart. or mince pies.
Oh, I used to love pig custard.
Oh, I love pig custard.
And cornflake tart.
Oh, cornflake tart. I love that. What was you? I want to ask you these questions.
You're in the hot seat, unfortunately.
What do you say? No, you tell me. What would you say? School dinners or packed lunch?
Oh, school dinners all the way. Definitely school dinners all the way. Learning in the classroom or getting outdoors?
Well, I would definitely say both.
Okay. Why would you say both?
Well, I think it's really important to get out and bring something alive. I remember doing maths, and I remember not really understanding why my maths was, even though I loved it, but how was it applicable? I then went to look at, I think it was an apprenticeship. They were using maths to work out how to build a house, as an example, because you need all of that kind of math. So I think you need a bit of both. Okay. Really.
Sex and relationship education, starting at primary school or starting from secondary school?
I think you should let a child be a child for as long as possible.
Okay, right, so we're coming to an end now, Amanda, so really, really appreciate your time, and it's been good to cover some key themes and topics in particular. I suppose I just want to finish on a bit of a message, really, for you to kind of say there'll be schools out there, there'll be leaders out there, there'll be parents, there'll be even young people that attend colleges and universities in the education sector, that some of them will vote, some of them won't vote. And actually, you know, if you were to send out a key message to the education sector in terms of why they should vote for you, in particular, if you want to make it, you know, controversial in the sense why not your kind of opposition, why would you make it a great MP for Derby North, for schools, for nurseries, for colleges, for universities, for alternative provisionals? Why Amanda Solloway?
Well, I'm not in the, it's not my nature to knock, so I'm not going to take the opportunity to knock. Thank you very much, though, you've offered it. What I would say is you make a really important point, that education is right from that nursery all the way through. It involves the pupils, it involves the teachers, it involves the parents, it involves all the staff that brilliantly sit behind it, and all of that working together. I think an MP is a key part of that jigsaw, if you like, working together. I think I have proven that I really do care passionately about education. I think I've proven that I really do care passionately about young people, but I also care passionately about those in the profession who are really working hard to ensure that we make education as meaningful and as valuable as it can be, because ultimately it's always about that individual, isn't it, who's receiving that education. And if we lose sight of that one person, then really, you know, your job isn't worthwhile, nor is mine.
Thank you. Well, really appreciate your time, Amanda.
No, thank you very much.
And on behalf of everybody that works out, you know, in schools, in our nurseries, in the education sector, it's been helpful that you've kind of taken up the invite to come and sit in the hot seat and
just getting quite hot in here, thank you.
And all things education, and that's really, really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.